Have you ever witnessed the paradox? The almost unnerving phenomenon of a man becoming utterly consumed by the woman he willingly discarded. Not just a fleeting thought, not a pang of nostalgia, but a profound, disorienting obsession. He sees her across a crowded room, or in a photograph, or simply hears her name, and a switch is flipped in the deep machinery of his soul. The woman he once deemed insufficient, the one he left for someone supposedly better, more convenient, less complicated, safer, suddenly becomes the singular focus of his psychic world. He begins to chase, to orbit, to unravel in the face of her newfound indifference. Many will offer a simple, almost cynical explanation. Men only want what they can't have. It is a game of scarcity, a trick of the ego. But the reality is infinitely deeper, more primal, and far more unsettling. The truth is not that she has become unavailable, but that she has become whole. And for the man who lives in halves, a whole woman is not a prize to be won. She is a terrifying mirror to the emptiness of his own unexamined life. What you are witnessing is not a game of cat and mouse. It is a spiritual crisis, triggered by the quiet, devastating power of a woman who finally chose herself. This is not about tactics. This is not about a no-contact rule employed as a strategy to reignite desire. This is about a fundamental transmutation of a woman's entire being. The change that drives him to the edge of his own sanity is not external. It is a seismic shift that has occurred in the deepest strata of her psyche. It is a form of power so absolute because it is not wielded consciously to get him back. It is simply who she has become. Her power is a byproduct of her pain, her solitude, and her grueling journey inward. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung provided a map for this strange territory of the human soul. He spoke of archetypes, the universal, primal symbols that reside in our collective unconscious. For a man, one of the most significant of these is the anima, the unconscious feminine aspect of his psyche, the idealized inner woman who represents soul, meaning, and connection to the vast, mysterious world of feeling and intuition. A man spends his life projecting this anima onto the women he encounters, hoping one will finally carry its weight, will finally complete him. But Jung also warned of the shadow, the dark, repressed, and unwanted parts of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. The insecurities, the fears, the hidden cruelties, the emotional cowardice. A man who has not faced his shadow lives in a state of perpetual projection, blaming the world, and especially the women in it, for the turmoil that roils within him. Before her transformation, this woman was the perfect screen for his projections. Think back to who she was when he knew her, when he left her. She was a study in earnest, desperate love. She loved until she lost herself, pouring her essence into the cracks of his brokenness, hoping her devotion would be the glue that would finally make him whole, and in turn, make her feel seen. She confused attachment with love, anxiety with passion. Her sense of self was a fragile thing, contingent upon his moods, his approval, his presence. She was not a whole person but a carefully curated half, believing the myth that her completion existed within another. She would text first, always. She would apologize for feelings he provoked. Her conversations were interrogations, desperate attempts to mine his silence for a single nugget of reassurance. She accepted his emotional crumbs as if they were a feast, because the terror of his absence was greater than the slow starvation of his presence. He would say, "You're too much," and she would make herself smaller. He would say, "You're too sensitive," and she would numb her own heart. She existed not as herself, but as a perpetual applicant for a position he was never truly looking to fill. The dynamic between them was not a relationship. It was a toxic feedback loop, a repeating script of his dysfunction and her accommodation. He was a man who had never done his own inner work, a man running from his own shadow. He was likely what is often called emotionally unavailable, but it was more than that. He was psychically fragmented. His unresolved issues with his own mother, his deep-seated fears of inadequacy, his terror of genuine intimacy. All of this was projected onto her. She became the screen for his inner horror movie. When he accused her of being crazy or dramatic, He was simply describing the chaos of his own untended soul. His judgments were never about her. They were confessions about himself. And he left her not because she was flawed, but because she was beginning to get too close to the truth. Her love, in its raw intensity, was a light that threatened to illuminate the dark, dusty corners of his psyche he had sworn to keep hidden. Leaving her was an act of self-preservation. He found someone new, someone easier. This new woman is not a person to him. She is a function. She is the absence of challenge, the quiet of superficiality. She does not trigger his shadow because she does not have enough light to cast one. She is safe because she is shallow, and in her placid waters, he does not have to see the monster staring back from the depths. The end of their relationship was not just a breakup. It was an ego death. The pain was absolute, a void so profound it threatened to swallow her whole. For a time, she did what was expected. She cried. She raged. She obsessed over what she could have done differently. She scrolled through his new life, each happy photograph a fresh stab in the heart. This was the dark night of the soul. But then, something shifted. It happened slowly at first, not as a thunderous epiphany, but as a quiet, guttural whisper from the deepest part of her being. The whisper said, "No more." It was the moment the pain stopped being just pain and started becoming information. It was the moment she realized that the gaping hole he had left behind was not a wound he had inflicted, but a space that had been empty all along, a space she had been begging him to fill. She finally understood, with chilling clarity, that no one was coming to save her. Her salvation was not in his return, but in her own turning inward. The path forward was not back to him, but down into the abyss of herself. And so began the grueling work of her own individuation. This is the journey Jung described as the process of becoming a whole, integrated individual. She stopped looking at his social media and started looking at her own reflection. She turned off the noise of the world and learned to sit in the deafening silence of her own company. At first, it was unbearable. In that silence, all her ghosts emerged. The shadow she had been projecting onto him, her own neediness, her terror of abandonment, her deep-seated belief that she was unworthy of love, rose to the surface. And she did not run. She sat with her demons. She learned their names. She listened to their stories. She looked at her rage not as a flaw, but as a sacred fire, the fuel of her transformation. She looked at her sadness not as a weakness, but as a holy water, cleansing her of a love that was never truly hers. She stopped asking, "Why did he leave me?" and started asking, "Why did I accept so little for so long?" This was the true alchemy. She was not destroying the weak parts of herself. She was integrating them. She was reclaiming all the pieces of her soul she had given away. She nourished herself with solitude, with books, with walks in nature, with the quiet, steady work of rebuilding her own foundation, piece by painstaking piece. She made a pact, not with a god or the universe, but with the woman in the mirror. Never again. Never again would she betray herself for the comfort of a lie. Now, observe the woman she is today. She walks into a room, and the air changes. It is not about her clothes or her makeup. It is an energy she exudes, a frequency of self-possession. She is not loud. She is resonant. She does not seek attention. She commands presence. Her silence is no longer an awkward void, but a field of power. She has mastered the art of her own containment. She does not leak her energy in nervous chatter or desperate attempts to please. She is whole, and this wholeness is what makes her so profoundly dangerous to the established order of things. She is no longer a half-circle searching for its missing piece. She is a complete circle, and the only way to enter her life is to be a complete circle as well. She doesn't need a man to validate her existence, to pay her bills, to father her children, or to make her feel beautiful. She can do all of that for herself. Therefore, when she chooses to let someone in, it is not out of lack, but out of abundance. It is a choice, not a necessity. And this distinction is the source of her almost mystical power. Her new state of being manifests in subtle, yet devastatingly effective ways. When he, the man from her past, inevitably drifts back into her orbit, he encounters a stranger. He tries the old tactics, the little barbs or compliments designed to elicit a reaction, to prove he still holds sway over her emotions. But she does not react. She doesn't rise to the bait, nor does she offer a cold shoulder. She offers something far more unnerving. Placid, genuine neutrality. Her calm is not a strategy. It is a landscape. It is the peaceful country she now inhabits, and his frantic attempts to start a fire there are like striking a wet match in a downpour. He is baffled. His entire framework for understanding her, for controlling her, has been shattered. He finds himself face to face with a woman who does not need his approval, and it terrifies him because his entire identity is built on being the grandeur of such things. This is where the Jungian archetypes come into full, terrifying play. In her wholeness, in her integration of her own light and shadow, she unconsciously becomes a perfect mirror for his unintegrated anima. He looks at her and sees not just a woman, but the embodiment of soul, of depth, of the meaning that is so profoundly absent from his safe, superficial life. She represents the road not taken, the spiritual adventure he sacrificed for comfort. Her authenticity, her quiet strength, her self-contained joy, these are the very qualities of the idealized feminine that his soul craves. He had projected it onto her before, but it was a blurry, distorted image. Now, because she has become it for herself, the projection is crystal clear, and it is blinding. He is not falling in love with her again. He is falling in love with his own missing soul, which he sees, with agonizing clarity, living and breathing inside of her. Simultaneously, her very presence forces him to confront his own shadow. Her integrity illuminates his compromises. Her emotional honesty highlights his cowardice. Her courage to face her own darkness makes his flight from his own seem pathetic. He used to be able to call her needy or dramatic and believe it, but now her serene self-possession makes those labels absurd. He is the one who now seems needy, desperately seeking a reaction from her. He is the one who is creating the drama. She doesn't have to say a word. Her existence is the accusation. Her peace is the judgment. She has done the work he refused to do, and the result is a psychic chasm between them. He stands on one side, in the barren land of his own making, and looks across at her, a vibrant, self-sustaining ecosystem of one. The chasm itself is his own unexamined life, his own repressed shadow. And so, the world begins to perceive him differently, because his own self-perception is unraveling. At work, he is distracted, his confident facade cracking. His friends notice his agitation, his obsessive talk of the past. But the greatest casualty is his current relationship. The safe woman, the one he chose because she asked for nothing, suddenly seems like a ghost. Her lack of depth, once a comfort, is now a source of profound irritation. Every conversation feels like white noise. Her touch feels empty. He looks at her and sees only the absence of the woman who now haunts him. He tries to provoke fights, to create a drama that might mimic the intensity he has lost. He might accuse his new partner of the very things he once accused his ex of, projecting his inner turmoil outward in a desperate attempt to make sense of it. His new relationship was built on the shaky ground of his own avoidance, and the earthquake of his ex-girlfriend's transformation is reducing it to rubble. He is caught in a terrible psychic bind. The woman who offers him stability now represents stagnation, and the woman he abandoned now represents the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of being whole. He will try to pull her back into the old script. He will send the late-night text, "I miss you." The old her would have seen this as a victory, a sign that her love was finally being recognized. The new her, the whole woman, reads between the lines. She doesn't hear, "I miss you." She hears, "I am bored and you have become interesting again." She hears, "My soul is starving and I think you are my food." She hears, "I want to consume your light to avoid my own darkness." He might say, "I made a terrible mistake." She hears, "My escape route didn't lead to paradise and now I want to come back to the home I helped burn down." She rejects this, not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet clarity of a queen who will not allow a civil war to be fought on her land. She has moved beyond the world that preaches that a woman's value is tied to a man's validation. She dismisses the whispers of a society that would tell her, "He's sorry. Give him another chance." She knows that his return is not about her worth, but about his emptiness. Her lack of interest is not a power play. It is the simple, unvarnished truth. She is no longer available for the role he wants her to play. She is not a rehabilitation center for broken men. She is not a stop on his journey of self-discovery. She is the journey, but it is her own. And that is the realization that finally breaks him. He is not chasing a woman. He is chasing an archetype. He is chasing his own potential for growth, a potential he can only see in her. He is risking everything, his relationship, his reputation, his sanity, to reclaim something that was never his to begin with. He is chasing his own anima, and she is leading him straight into the heart of his own shadow. In the end, it is crucial to understand this immutable truth. A man does not chase the woman he left because she became more beautiful or more successful. He doesn't chase her because she learned a new set of seduction tactics. He chases her because she stopped being a character in his story and became the author of her own epic. She embarked on the hero's journey, descended into her own hell, slayed her own dragons, and returned with the treasure of her own soul. This treasure, this wholeness, is what radiates from her. It is the treasure hard to attain that the old myths speak of, not because she is playing games, but because the price of admission to her world is a currency he does not possess. Self-awareness, emotional courage, and the willingness to face one's own darkness. He thinks he wants her, but what he truly wants is the key she holds, the key to his own locked room. But she will not give it to him. She knows that that door, like hers, can only be opened from the inside. If anything in this story has touched something deep within you, if you felt a flicker of recognition or the faint echo of a similar journey in your own life, understand that it is not an accident. Perhaps this message found you for a reason. That whisper you sometimes hear in the quiet moments, the one that urges you toward your own healing, your own wholeness, that is the most important voice you will ever hear. The power that this woman embodies is not about winning him back. It was never about him. It is the power to never lose yourself again. It is the peace that comes from knowing you are enough, a universe unto yourself. And if love comes again, it will not be the desperate, clinging love of two halves trying to make a whole. It will be the calm, celebratory love of two whole circles, choosing to overlap, not out of need, but out of a shared and joyful abundance. Let this message be a catalyst, not just a passive experience. If these words resonated, if they affirmed a truth you already felt deep in your bones, then take a conscious action. Share this video with someone who is walking through the fire of their own transformation, someone who needs to be reminded that their healing is their power. Like this video not as a mindless click, but as a signal that you stand for this kind of sovereignty. And share your own response in the comments below. Your story, your insight, your declaration. Your voice is a part of this collective awakening. Finally, subscribe to this channel. Do it not out of impulse, but as a deliberate choice to continue this journey, to keep feeding the part of you that knows your greatest love story is the one you write with yourself.